Welcome back, everybody. We got UFC Fight Night, Bautista versus Oliveira this Saturday. First fight night of the year in the Apex, unfortunately. We'll make it work. There's some good fights on this card. Let's get right into it with my full picks and predictions, top to bottom. Starting with the main event, we have Vinicius Oliveira taking on Mario Bautista. This is an interesting one. Mario Bautista, we've seen him fight a lot of the top guys and have success. Obviously, he lost to Umar Nurmagomedov in the last fight, which I thought was a relatively competitive fight. It got scored 30-27, but, it wasn't. He clearly won the second round. He knocked down Umar Nurmagomedov with a knee. This should be a good fight. I think Vinicius Oliveira poses a bit of a unique threat. He's super reckless, in a sense, when he comes in. He comes in swinging. And if you're a good counter striker and you can maneuver around him, you could definitely have a lot of success. Mario Bautista, like I said, has a lot of experience. He has less fights on his record, but he has tons and tons of experience fighting the top guys. He's extremely tough, and I see that playing a big factor. And he has more experience in big fights. I think that Mario Bautista will come off his last fight, which he lost to Umar, and get a win here by decision. I think he outpoints Oliveira. I think he'll probably win 49-46. I could absolutely see Oliveira dropping him in a round. Like I said, he hits really hard. He's super dangerous all over. But I do think he does leave too many openings to where he can get caught himself. And Mario Bautista, he's not very much a super finisher, but he will make you pay if you leave too big of holes in your game, which I think at this point in Oliveira's career there are. It should be a good fight though. Like I said, Mario Bautista with a fun 49-46 decision win is my prediction there. Moving down, arguably the fight I could be most excited for in this card, we got Kyoji Horiguchi getting back in there against Amir Albazi. And I'm riding with Kyoji Horiguchi, I'd say relatively confidently. I'm not high on Amir Albazi whatsoever. I think Horiguchi will run through him, genuinely. Horiguchi, it's funny, I forget who pulled out against Brandon Moreno. Horiguchi's like, yeah, let me fight Amir Albazi, and then I'll go take on Moreno right after, 3 weeks later. And they didn't say yeah to that because you can't rely on him to get out of this fight with no injuries or whatever. But that's badass. I'm taking Horiguchi in this fight by decision. I think he's just better everywhere. Insane amounts of experience. The one thing, these guys that come out of that part of the world, they have so many fights. He's got 41 fights. That's insane. He's got so much experience. He's super dangerous, super well-rounded. Trains with the best 125er, and Alexandre Pantoja. Trains closely with him. I think he just absolutely dominates Amir Albazi, who I think is extremely overrated. And I think Horiguchi wins a decision relatively easily. Could finish him though. All right, Jailton Almeida taking on Rizvan Kuniev. Jailton Almeida's last fight was insanely disappointing, insanely boring with Alexander Volkov, who, while yes, not the best in the division anymore, but still a really tough opponent to fight someone who's 6'8". I think this fight will be a lot easier for Jailton Almeida. I think he will submit Rizvan Kuniev in the second round. I don't think Kuniev will have as much success fighting off Almeida's submissions. I think he will be able to work to pass Kuniev's guard insanely easily. I think this will be pretty quick first or second round submission. Is going to be the pick. I think lighter man skill is going to be super apparent here. I think this is a total mismatch. Should be pretty easy for Almeida. Fun fight. Hopefully a knockout coming. Here we got Michel Alashaychuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Easy pick here. Alashaychuk, round 1 TKO. Round 2 maybe, if Marc-Andre can kind of skirt the outside and tough it out a little bit. We've seen him do against a couple fights recently. He's relatively tough, but he's also kind of chinny at the same time. He was able to not get knocked out by Shara Magomedov, who obviously is really overrated. People, he has one highlight and suddenly he's a crazy knockout artist. He's not. Alashaychuk, round 1 knockout, really confident here. I think this is a bad matchup for Marc-Andre. I think he's too hittable, and he can't take a punch overly well. Pretty easy pick for me there. Now, a tough fight here to pick. You got Farid Basharat versus Jean Matsumoto. So, Basharat, if I'm not mistaken, is like a pretty big favorite, which I think is kind of crazy with how good Jean has looked recently. John? I think it's Gene, actually. He just won his last one against Miles Johns, that's a decent win. 17-1, still pretty young. He looks really good though. This is definitely a step up. Farid Basharat's very good, and there's a reason why Basharat's like a 2-1 or something favorite. I'm riding with Gene. Honestly, I believe in the hype of him. He's still, like I said, very young, but he is super, super well-rounded and gaining experience. I think he's very good. I think he's good enough to get this win. Yeah, I think it should be a good one. The Basharat, like I said, he's been looking really good. I think he's on quite a big win streak. Yeah, he's 14-0, but I thought he he had a good last win against Chris Gutierrez, so I'm getting sidetracked. But Gene Matsumoto, give me the pick here. By decision. I don't think he's gonna get Basharat out of there. Another interesting, I'm pretty sure. So we got Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. I'm pretty sure Julius Walker is a big underdog as well, which I think is nuts. I've been kind of high on him for a little bit. I think he's pretty underrated. Yeah, Julius Walker. We're gonna take round 2 or round 3 TKO. I think he outdogs Dustin Jacoby, who don't get me wrong, I think is very, very solid fighter. But Julius Walker is gonna finish him. Mark my words. He's gonna finish him. I think he's very underrated in this division. Light heavyweight's kind of a weak division. Julius Walker is very athletic. I think he outdogs Dustin Jacoby and finishes him. Moving down, we have Alex Morano versus Danilo Danchenko, and I think this is Danchenko's first. No, I thought he had. This is his first fight after, I think, Tough, if I'm not mistaken. First actual UFC fight. Taking on Alex Morano. Danilo Danchenko by TKO. Pretty easy pick. Alex Morano's going to get chinned really quick. I would say first round TKO within 2 minutes. It's going to be quick. Danchenko's dangerous as hell. Nasty, nasty striking. He'll make this look easy. Pretty simple pick. Nikolai Veretennikov versus Nico Price. Truthfully, I don't know why Nico Price is still in the UFC. I get he's getting money and stuff, but it's kind of crazy. He's going to get absolutely murked here, I'd imagine. Maybe he can pull off an upset. I just don't see it being possible. I think Veretennikov's going to absolutely slime him out. This is kind of an awful fight. Truthfully, Nico Price shouldn't be in the UFC anymore, and Nikolai Veretennikov is not very good. But I think he'll slime out Nico Price pretty quickly. He's old and washed and not that great. Bruna Brazil versus Ketlin Souza. We're riding with Bruna Brazil. I think she's very good. She's going to be really big in there against Ketlin Souza. Got 3-inch height advantage, reach advantage. She's a dog. Ketlin Souza, decent fighter. But listen, if you're losing to Angela Hill at this point in your career, that's not a good sign. Bruna Brazil lost to Kong Wang. Got upset there, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Anyways, Bruna Brazil by decision. We're not going to get a finish here, I wouldn't think. I think it's going to be pretty boring. Decision. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just me, but I feel like women's MMA, it's never been great, don't get me wrong, but I feel like over the years it's gotten significantly worse and more boring. But that could just be me. But Bruno Brazil by decision here. Now we got Said Nurmagomedov versus Javid Basharat. We got the little runt inbred here. Taking on Basharat. We're taking Basharat by decision. Said is not very good. Truthfully, not very good. Basharat gonna beat him up. I'd say that pretty confidently. Said is just kind of weak and small. I don't see him being able to implement his game too much against Basharat. I see this Basharat by decision, most likely. Try to use the striking. Said, like I said, not very good anywhere. Weak. I mean, his grappling's all right, but it's not super high level. He got out-grappled by Bryce Mitchell, who, don't get me wrong, has decent grappling, but yeah. And now we get Wang Kong versus Edward Mura. We're taking Eduardo Mura. Wang Kong, not good. Overrated. Eduardo Mura is going to be bigger, more physical. Get a decision. I think literally 90. Besides maybe the top level, where it's not 90%, maybe it's like 70%. But 90% of women's MMA is just being more physical and more aggressive. If you can like throw a lady and just kind of move her around, they're going to give you the decision. Because hardly any of them have like knockout ability. Like sometimes by a kick or something, or you can throw enough volume out there where the ref just steps in. But being physical is 90% of winning a women's MMA fight, besides maybe the top level. Like if you can just be more physical, move the other lady around, and just kind of do a little bit of damage, you're going to win the fight. 2 rounds. That's all you need, And I think Eduardo Mora will be a little more physical in this fight and get this win. Marine Gafarov versus Jacob Wiklax. If you would have said, oh, Jacob Wiklax beat Patchy Mix, oh, that's a great win. If you would have said that 2 years ago or a year ago, people were like, oh, yeah, that's a great bro, Patchy Mix sucks. So I'm not going to take that too much into account. But it's a decent win. I mean, it's decent. Because, he beats everyone outside of the UFC. But Jacob Wiklax versus Marine Gafarov. I'm taking the Wiklax by decision. I did think he was relatively decent. I think his grappling's pretty decent. Yeah, I don't know. This is a really 50-50 fight for me. I just went with Jacob because I'd rather him win, truthfully. It's really 50-50. Marine Gafarov is relatively decent. He has a win over Reni Nakamura in his last one, which is a good win. But we're going to ride with Jacob Wiklax by decision. I don't really see this being a finish. And then we got, in the last fight, Priscilla Cachoeira versus Claudia Segula. We're going with Claudia. You should see the picture of her on Tapology, bro. She's a good-looking lady. Looks way worse here, but looks real good there. Anyways, Claudia Segula. Maybe I should go with Priscilla because oftentimes the non-good-looking girl wins. But I'd rather root for her anyways. Anyways, Claudia, decision. I mean, yeah. This card is pretty crap. It's all right. There's the main card is all right. Some decent fights, but overall, just a giant step down from the past 2 cards we have, which in themselves are not that great, but that's all right. Mario Bautista hopefully gets a win, gets back out there, gets a win. I mean, listen, Vinicius Oliveira, I like him. He's very fun to watch. So, we'll see. We could get a highlight reel out of this one. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Last week we went, I think, 10 for 13 on picks, so not bad. But hopefully we can do a little bit better this week. I want to get another perfect card. It's been a little bit. It's been close, but it's been a little bit. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. You guys could subscribe and leave a comment. And yeah, appreciate you guys. Have a good day. Peace.